Have you ever stopped to think about how a huge company decides where to put its biggest bets? And I'm not talking about small, everyday changes. I mean the massive, multi-billion-dollar moves that literally shape our future. Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that exact process.
So let's just chew on that question for a second. I mean, really think about it. How does a company look at an idea that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction, like a self-driving car, and decide, yep, we're going to pour billions into that? It just sounds like a crazy gamble, doesn't it?
Well, for a company like Google's parent, Alphabet, it all starts in a pretty special place, a division that's literally designed for these giant leaps of faith. You've probably heard of it. It's their Moonshot division. And figuring out how they justify those massive bets is what we're all about today.
Now, Moonshot sounds super exciting, maybe even a little bit random. But behind the scenes, there's a really strict, disciplined process going on. It's a fundamental financial practice that has its own name, and it's kind of like the secret language that guides a company's entire future.
And that name is capital budgeting. So what is it really? At its core, it's the official rulebook companies follow to figure out which huge long-term investments are actually worth the risk. We're talking about building new factories, launching in new countries, or, developing artificial intelligence.
So capital budgeting really boils down to three main goals. First, and this one's pretty obvious, they've got to pick projects that are actually going to make money. Second, nobody has an infinite amount of cash, so they have to use their capital efficiently. You just can't fund every single good idea that comes along. And finally, all of this serves the big picture goal, making the company more valuable for its owners, the shareholders.
Okay, so how do they actually make these calls? It's not just a gut feeling in a boardroom, right? Nope. Financial managers have a specific set of tools they use to bring some real mathematical clarity to these massive, world-changing decisions.
The first tool in the box is something called net present value, or NPV. It's all based on one simple idea. A dollar in your hand today is worth more than a dollar you get next year because you could invest it. So NPV takes all the future money a project is expected to make and crunches it down to what it's worth right now. If that number is bigger than what you have to spend to start it, you get a positive NPV. That's a huge green light.
Next up is the internal rate of return, or IRR. A good way to think about this is as the project's own personal growth rate. It basically tells you the percentage return you can expect from the investment every year. Now, every company has what's called a hurdle rate. It's like the minimum passing grade. If the project's IRR clears that hurdle, it becomes a very serious contender for getting funded.
And finally, we've got the most straightforward tool of the bunch, the payback period. It asks a really simple question. How long until we make our initial investment back? It's really all about measuring risk. A shorter payback period is obviously less risky, but focusing only on that might mean you miss out on a different project that has a way bigger, even if it's a slower, payoff.
But here's the thing, and this is super important. These tools, as crucial as they are, they don't give you the whole picture. At the end of the day, making the final call is as much an art as it is a science. It's a true balancing act.
And this really gets to the heart of it all. Every major decision is like walking a tightrope between the chance for huge success and the very real possibility of failure. The numbers from your toolkit can point you in the right direction, for sure, but they can't make that final leap for you.
So you got to look beyond the cold hard numbers. Decision makers have to ask these big strategic questions. Like for market potential, is anyone actually going to buy this thing? For technological feasibility, do we even have the brainpower to pull this off? And for strategic fit, does building a self-driving car even make sense for us? These kinds of questions are just as important as the math. And make no mistake, the stakes are incredibly high. Making poor investment choices can wreck a company's finances and lead to total stagnation. But on the flip side, getting it right drives the kind of innovation that can lock in a company's competitive edge for decades to come. Which brings us full circle right back to where we started. Google's big, futuristic bets. Let's see how this all comes together and actually creates a real-world payoff. You can see this in action with Google all the time. They're not just worried about next quarter's profits. They are using this exact framework to strategically dump resources into these huge, high-potential fields like AI and cloud computing, because they're betting those are the fields that will define our future.
So the key takeaway here is that this isn't just a one-off thing. It creates this powerful, positive feedback loop. Smart capital allocation leads to smart investments. Those investments fuel long-term growth, and that growth gives you more capital for the next round of big bets. It's the engine that keeps innovative companies right at the cutting edge.
So there you have it.
From moonshots to market share, that's the art and science of capital budgeting. It's how the companies of today are literally building the world of tomorrow. Kind of makes you think, doesn't it? When you look at everything going on, what do you think is the next smart investment in our future?